Hello, everyone, and welcome to From Darkness to Love and Light. I have a guest today who has such an interesting story that I can't wait to hear all about. Um, Her name is Amber Powers, and she grew up in a cult-like religion in Middle America, where she felt suppressed and limited. It wasn't until she began to question her life and her true beliefs that she was truly able to slowly untether herself from from a complicated community and find spirituality on her own terms and discover the power of her voice and purpose in order to help other women embrace theirs. Amber is also the president of Powers Digital Marketing. It is kind of being reformatted right at the moment, and I will let her explain more about that. So, Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. This is actually my first podcast post book launch,
Wow.
which happened back in April. So yes, it's me getting back on the bike.
Yeah, I hear you. That's okay.
Yes.
And the cool thing about it is just it's easy peasy with me. We're just two old pals just having a chat. So
That's
don't you
right.
worry about
I'm
a
for
thing.
it. I'm for it.
Yeah. So
So
tell
yes.
us your
Yeah, I was just going to
story.
say, yes, the website is being revamped. I'll get to that at the end.
Okay, yeah, cool.
But yes.
That's cool. Yeah, we always, technology, there's always things that kind of like give us hiccups. I just switched websites for my crystal bracelet business, so I know your pain. It's not that easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. For sure.
Yeah, but all right, well, start wherever you feel comfortable with starting to share your story.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I was raised in a cult. As I've come to understand that term, I think a lot of people are raised in a similar fashion. All of us are unique in our own way. But essentially, what it comes down to is, we are fed, most of us, our parents or our families or our friends' belief systems growing up. And many of us are expected to conform to those beliefs. Um, and as a young child, I found myself with my own beliefs, but not quite knowing how to express them safely uh, because I was in an abusive situation, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Um, and so from the time that I can remember learning how to read, when it was safe for parents to do so, my parents would leave me at the B. Dalton bookstore in Greenwood, Indiana, while they did their shopping. And I would plop myself down in the theology section and learn all of the things that I possibly could learn. I read dispensationalist evangelical literature. I read witchcraft literature. I read Satanist literature. Like, I read everything that I could get my hands on as it pertains to theology. I've just had a very sincere desire to connect with the divine, but I didn't know what that really was. And so I accepted what I was being taught for most of my life. And essentially just caved to what my parents and my peers and my church family wanted me to believe. Because it seemed like that's what everybody else was doing. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So that was, the beginning 16 years of my life, at which point it was, my whole life was church. I'll just start off saying that. Wednesday nights were Wednesday night services. Friday nights were youth services. Tuesday nights were band practice. Saturday night church. Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon and evening church. So there were about 2 days a week where we didn't have to go to church. And so it was heavily like, that's really all I was involved in. I didn't do extracurricular sports in high school. And so when I was 16, it was a normal day like any other. And the family went to church. We went to Sunday school first thing in the morning. We went to service. And then In the afternoon, we came home in between services, which is a little bit odd. Sometimes that happened, but not very often because we lived about 25, 30 minutes from our church.
Okay.
And so we did drive home in between Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening services. And around 6 o'clock, I started to notice this is odd. Like we would normally be going back at this time. Why aren't we? And it was about that time that our phone rang, and it was my cousin's fiance, and she said, "Hey, we noticed you're not back. Are you guys still coming this evening?" And my mom told her, she said, "We will not ever be back." And that was the first time I heard that we were leaving the cult that I was raised in. Now, that's, I guess, the severity of that to explain why that was such a monumental moment for me. The church I was raised in preached perfection. You had to be perfect to make it to heaven. Did that mess with my head? Uh-huh.
Yeah. There is no
Yes.
such thing as perfect. But
Yes.
yeah.
and to this day, I struggle with perfection and not being good enough. And I struggle with self-worth. I do so much to help, really build myself up personally. But when you've gone somewhere your whole life that teaches we are the only people going to heaven, that teaches you have to be perfect in order to go to heaven. And then all of a sudden at 16 years old, your mother says, by the way, everything that you know, we're now ripping that out from under you. Right? I was already an odd child. I never fit in. I was 5'10" by the time I was in 5th grade. I had boobs. I had legs. People noticed me. There was no fitting in. I was made to stand out. But I also stood out in ways like I don't do well in social circles. I don't pick up on social cues. I'm actually getting evaluated for an autism diagnosis probably this month. So all of these other ways I didn't fit in at school. And so the only place I really fit in that I felt was at my church. So that was being ripped out from underneath me. So literally my entire world at that one moment just collapsed. And I'll never forget, I screamed at the top of my lungs. I said her name. I said my cousin's name. I said, "I will never leave that church." And my voice was trembling and I was sobbing. And I thought, my mom just signed my ticket to hell. In 60 seconds, I'm going to hell, So that's taken a lot to kind of undo that, step away from that, find my path to where I am today.
Right. What happened? What happened? Why did they just stop like that? Do you know what happened?
I do, yes. So the churches that I attended, they had kind of branches really all over the world, but mostly in the United States. And the head pastor of all of the churches was convicted of child molestation, rape, sodomy. There were rumors of embezzlement, adultery, a lot of things, right? And so, it wasn't even that act where my parents said, we got to get out of here. It was the fact that many of the ministers actually covered up what was happening that made them say our children are not safe here.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was the moment.
That, I would think from your parents doing that, I think having put you in that situation in the first place to be part of that church or whatever was probably meant with good intentions. It was just, and then they looked at it and then just went, no, that's just not where my children are going to be. And kudos to them for doing that, because that's a very, I'm sure, a very difficult thing for them to do. But that leaves, like you said, a lot of stuff for you to have to process and deal with now, because it's all you
for
do,
sure.
right? Wow.
Yes, and it's actually generational. I have family members who were a part of the Jonestown cult on both
Mm,
sides of my family.
wow.
I actually lost two cousins in the Jonestown massacre in Guyana that I never got to meet, but Jim Jones actually came to our church. He actually had a
Mm,
church right down the street from the one that I was raised in. And
wow.
so it's a generational thing of people just let me just start with everyone is susceptible to influence. And
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's a common misconception.
Yes.
Oh, I can't be influenced. Oh, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes,
Yeah.
you absolutely can. So it is not unheard of for this type of thing to happen. It's just
Yeah.
an awakening, I think, for
Right.
people like myself to really challenge the beliefs
Hmm.
that they've been raised with and say, this is not working for me any longer. If it
Hmm.
works for you, that's great. But for me, it doesn't. And you can choose to associate with me or not. And in the writing of my book, I actually lost probably 2/3 of my family, if not more, maybe 3/4,
Wow.
because many of them still hold those beliefs to be true and
Right.
they cannot make room for me. And that's okay. I still love them from a distance.
Yeah.
Um, but also, I protect my peace. So,
Yes. Absolutely. And that's, you know, I understand that completely. I mean, I've been through some changes in my life, and you have to do what's best for yourself, and it's not selfish.
absolutely.
It's, it's your life. You have to do what's
Yeah,
good for you, and that's all that matters, right? Like,
absolutely.
but it takes a lot of courage to do it, but
Yes,
there's peace in it too, right? At the
there
end.
absolutely is.
Yeah.
Finding your peace is paramount.
Yeah.
Um, because if you're not at peace, you're constantly searching. You feel like you're kind of aimless, chasing your tail.
Yeah.
And I was tired of chasing my tail. And so I really took note of what was working in my life and what was not.
Hmm.
And I started to make very small changes. My now husband and I, we've been together for 10 years, not married, but together for 10 years. And when he and I first got together, I would share some of what I was discovering on my path to spirituality, which is where I am now. I don't know where I'll be in 10 years, but where I am now is I am spiritual and I have no desire to be religious ever again.
Right.
But
Right.
I also never say never because that's one of the things that I've learned, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and so right now, what I started to share with him, I started to kind of scare myself. I'm like, ooh, if I release some of these limiting beliefs and these fear-based beliefs, then what does that say about me and my relationship with God and this and that and whatever. Um, and also he created a safe space for me to just be honest. And I think that has been one of the most rewarding situations that I found
Right.
myself in
Wow.
is to be with someone who just allows you to be you without having
Right.
to explain yourself. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Hmm.
And knowing that I am going to be loved by him, because what that has enabled me to do is to learn to really love myself because I'm not constantly in fear mode about, oh my god, did I make her mad? Is she going to give me the silent treatment? That was what used to happen with my mom. She would manipulate me through silent treatment or other things. So guilt, manipulation, fear, all of the things. But in being in this space where I could just be loved and just be accepted for who I am, and my
Right.
quirkiness and my weirdness was actually celebrated, then I
Yeah.
began to like blossom as this beautiful human that I've fallen in love with. And that is
Right.
everything to me.
Yeah. Oh, yay. That's so
Yeah.
amazing. Like,
Yeah,
oh gosh, incredible. Like, it's just,
absolutely.
yeah, just to think that, to go through all that. I mean, and it's, the challenges are still going to lie ahead. And like you say, you never know what the future might hold, and your beliefs may change in certain ways, and that's okay. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
My publisher, as I was writing my book, it took me 2 years because I knew what was on the other side. I knew that I was going to lose family that I loved
Yeah.
and the church family that I grew to love, for all of those decades.
Right.
And I knew that I would lose them. And so it did take me some time. And even at the end, when I had finished everything, I kept saying to my publisher, oh, but I have this other thing that I need to add in there. And she said, Amber, this is going to be an evolving project for the next 10 years because who you're becoming will always be changing. That's why we write more books.
Yes, true. That's a good point, right? Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah.
So she got me out of that
Smart
procrastination. Girl. Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Oh, man. Unbelievable.
Exactly. So such a therapeutic process for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so where is the book being sold?
Right now, I believe you can get it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it at I personally advocate for people going to their mom and pops and asking them to actually order the book and have them send it to you because they need the money more than the big A need your money.
Absolutely.
So you can buy it there. It is free on Kindle Unlimited. It's also available, for a physical book or on Kindle. So you can get it there. It's called Untethered, the story of how I lost my religion to find my voice. And I'll be sure to send you the links for that, Linda, and the ISBN. So literally all you'll have to do is give the book owner or the bookshop owner or whomever answers the phone, the ISBN, and they'll be able to order it for you.
Right. Is it common? Like, are there a lot of cults across America, would you say? Like, is it a common thing that goes on still? Because you think it would be sort of something of the past more, but today.
I think it is common. It's so funny. One of the stories that I tell in the book is how I dated an Asian Indian man, and I think it was our first date. We went to an art museum in Indianapolis as our first date, and we were just walking around and looking at the displays. And one of the, chapters of my life as I was transitioning from Christianity to more of a spiritual belief system is I converted to Catholicism. I've always been drawn to like the ritual and the tradition of the Catholic Church, and I really wanted to learn more about that. And I did go through the complete conversion, and I was excited to share that with him. And I told him, how I grew up and I was in a cult and this and that. And he said, well, Amber, many Hindus actually see all of Christianity as a cult. And I was like, what? And I know that might not hit home for everybody. I'm not saying everybody has to believe that. But it does tick a lot of the marks for if you look at a definition of a cult.
Right.
Only certain people are going to heaven. We are the chosen ones, all of that. It does tick some of those boxes. And so I think that any institution that revolves around power and control, that's kind of the breeding ground for a cult. It doesn't have to be a Christian church. There are many spiritualist cults that are out there that have been broken up. And so it can exist anywhere. It doesn't have to be a religion that kind of breeds that. It can be any formal organization that has kind of a leader or a group of leaders that want to control other people, often through fear and manipulation.
Right, exactly. So you were 16 then when you stopped being a part of it, or did you continue to go afterwards? Because I know you said that you were never leaving the church. You did continue to go. Okay. I
did, yeah. So essentially what I did since I was 16, I had my own car, I had my license, so I could decide. My parents wouldn't, say, no, you can't.
Right.
They weren't thrilled about it, but I did continue to go back from time to time. It wasn't an everyday sort of a thing like it had been in the past.
Yeah.
But the theology was so different from traditional Christian churches that I needed something that was more aligned with my belief sets at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I ended up finding as kind of my church home until I was about 22 or 23 was a church that had broken off from that same church back in the
Okay.
1970s.
Mm-hmm.
So they were independent from that church, but they still had the same belief systems and belief
Okay.
like theologies as that
Right.
church practiced. And so I felt kind of at home there. The people were different, but a lot of people from that church actually left and went to the same break off from the 1970s. So there
Mm-hmm.
were some familiar faces there.
Mm-hmm.
My dad is a heavy reader. He's kind of a nerd like I am.
Mm-hmm.
And he had done a lot of analysis of the Bible and started to see some theological holes in our theology from, how we were raised. So
Right.
he and my mom and my brother started attending church on their own. I wasn't ready for that yet. But they started attending more traditional mainstream Protestant churches, as where I
Right.
was more like only in that lane.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
And so how did you just break away from that then? Like what changed? What did you I mean, hoping we're not giving the whole book away. I don't think so. I think you just read the book.
No, yeah.
It'll be too short.
What changed? Yeah, one of the rules of the cult was that we had to marry from within the cult.
Okay.
And I did, right? So I was still attending that same kind of brand of church.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to marry from within, and I did. I married him because he ticked some social norm boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what marriage was. Like, honest to God, I had no idea what I was in for. I thought it was two people cohabitating and like sharing food and that sort of thing. It's obviously so much more than that. And so we got married. I started to seek. I started to do some research. It was in college when I was attending college. I wasn't your traditional go to college outside of high school girl. I worked a full-time job, went to college. And it was during that time that I had to test out of my final course, which was they gave me the option, either Intro to Business Ethics or Intro to World Religions. And I looked at my counselor and I said, well, I know everything I need to know about business ethics. Like, it's kind of a moral issue, right? And he was like, yeah. And I said, I think I'm going to choose Intro to World Religions. He was like, okay. So he signed off on it. And then the test person who actually administered the test, the day that I tested out, he put the test out in front of me. I was the only person in the room. And he said, I've got to ask you, why were you the only person who took Intro to World Religions? Everybody else took the easy one and did business ethics. And I said, well, I'm in college and I don't know anything about any other religions. I've never been allowed to step into a Catholic church before. So I want to know more about these other faiths. And so I started exploring. This was in 2004 is when I graduated with my degree, my bachelor's degree. And it was in the studying of other religions that I started to see parallels between Christianity and theirs. And I said, I feel like I've not been told some things on purpose. And so, being the curious child that I am, I'm very aligned with Alice in Wonderland. For anybody else who knows the Alice story, I am her in a present day form. I'm constantly seeking. I'm so curious. I'm playful. And so I started really questioning, like, what is this all about?
Right.
And it wasn't jiving with anybody in my family, and it certainly wasn't jiving with my now ex-husband from the church. We had just outgrown each other. We never really were supposed to be together. We were not the ideal pairing. It was just that he ticked some societal boxes that people gave me the nod, and my life was all about appearances at the time. I showed up the way I was supposed to show up as, the good wifely, godly wife and all of the things. And that just wasn't me. So we divorced, and I started exploring what I wanted to explore instead of what everybody told me I had to explore.
Right.
I would say the biggest moment was when my mom passed away. And this is a really transparent moment in the book. And I think the exact phrasing goes something like this. In a world that deifies the dead, it's hard to admit that somebody else passing frees you to be the person that you are without being vilified.
Mm. Wow.
My mother was very controlling. She was very manipulative. And if I wanted a relationship with her, I would be the person she wanted me to be instead of being who I was. And I would have continued to play that role for her entire life. And so when she passed, she was such a strong spirit. She didn't just control my life. She controlled my dad's life. She controlled my brother's life, or tried to some degree. And we all were just kind of like, okay, now that she's gone, like, who are we? You know, now what? And I started to discover who I am, and I started to discover who my dad is, outside of having my mom sort of puppeteer everything. So,
right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Does your dad like feel more free sort of thing too, or?
He would never say that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he would never say that, because the other side of my mom is she was one of the most loving people that you've ever met. You know, It's easy for somebody to say, you know, she was the villain in their story, and she was. And also she had the hands that fed me and brushed my brow when I was sick and cared for me and stood up for me. You know what I mean? Like, there are two sides to every coin.
Sure.
And so he was very much in love with her to the day she passed. So he would never say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, it must be a little bit of ease, but it just would be also painful, I would imagine, like, for sure, you know, but gosh,
for sure.
Unreal. So it was at that point then you decided to just like, I'm done with all of this.
I'm done. And even still, I mean, even to this day, my mom passed in 2008. It's 2024. So even still to this day, you know, I do struggle, and it's not because of her anymore.
Right.
It's because there are some very like deeply ingrained belief systems that I'm still untethering from. And sometimes they come back. And so what I will say is now I am intentional about the thoughts that cross my path. That doesn't mean they don't cross my path. It just means I recognize them when they do. Right. And I ask myself, is this serving you? Is this leading you on a path to your highest good? And if it's not, I think it and I dismiss it.
Good for you.
I don't allow it to hang around.
Yeah. That's not easy to do, you know? So, but
it's not.
I mean, but that's so important. It really is, you know? Like, there's always going to be that. I mean, you're going to question yourself just because of the way that you were raised, right? Like, I mean, that's just the whole part of it. But yeah, you need to just believe in you and do those things for yourself, you know, like
100%.
Wow. It's just, it's mind boggling how like an organization that is supposed to be loving and caring could just cause so much damage, you know?
Yep, for sure.
Sad. So the book is
out. Now it's up to me. Yes, it is out. And it's really up to me. The whole book was really about, I mean, people want to read about other people's lives. It's interesting. And there's a lot of tragedy in my life. And I truly look at, it's hard to do this in the moment. When life is lifing at its hardest, it's hard to look at it and be like, this is a blessing. But everything that has happened to me, I have turned around and made it into something that is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't go back and change anything because every moment made me who I am today.
Exactly.
And, I was a part of a system that oppressed specifically women's voices. And so it is my passion today to help women who have been oppressed to find their voice, to give them the freedom to find their voice, to work together, to kind of coach them toward finding that voice. What are you passionate about? Who really are you? No,
Right.
not who they told you you are, not who some book told you you are. Who are you? Why are you here?
Yeah.
What brings you joy? What lights you up? And really encouraging her to be the highest version of herself. And if her goal is to, go along a similar path to me to amplify that voice, I have, we mentioned Powers Digital Marketing at the beginning of the call. So how this all kind of melds together, I have the tools. While marketing isn't necessarily the sexy side of business, it is a necessity. And I have decades of experience in marketing to help women amplify that voice once they find it. Because if you have a message to spread to the world, you got to get it out there, sister. You got to use it. And so that's why I'm on this podcast with you. It's to encourage women to seek, to find. Once they find, use. This is a tool that you have been given. Use it. So that's how I work with women now. And the book was really to encourage other women that you can go through some stuff.
Yeah.
I went through sexual abuse. I went through physical abuse, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse. I went through all of it, verbal abuse. I've been through a lot, and I'm still the person that I am today. It has been no easy mountain to climb. I can tell you that. But I'm worth it, and you're worth it. So that's really the message of the book.
Yeah. And it's just, it's what this is all about, right? It's just like every story, every woman who comes on here and shares their story, they're all different. But there's that one story that some listener might listen to and go, oh my God, that is me. So I can do this. I can get out. I can be free. I can live a life, and that's
100%.
All we can do is just do whatever we can to help other women live, find love, find light, loving themselves. That's the love. It's not find, the love of your life. It's find the love for you, so.
100%. Yeah. When you finally find out how to love yourself the most fully, and it sounds so easy. And when it comes to practicing it, it's very difficult.
It is.
But when you learn to love yourself fully and wholly accept who you are as a divine being, something really magical happens. And it's like you're looking into a mirror. I think of the universe as sort of a mirror, right?
Yeah.
And you're looking into the mirror and you're telling yourself how beautiful you are on the outside and the inside. You're telling yourself how wise you are, how on point your intuition has been, and thank you for that. What starts to happen is you're talking into this mirror and it sends back that same image in a different form.
Exactly.
You start to surround yourself with beauty everywhere.
Yep. That's probably the most important thing any woman could hear is that. Just that.
Yes.
So true and so important. And when you kind of fall away, you see how it shifts. All the negative stuff starts coming back at you.
That's right.
Wait a minute. Looking back in the mirror, I'm beautiful.
That's right.
And it's not easy to do because we can fall into that trap when you have self-esteem, self-worth issues or whatever. We can go backwards and not believe in ourselves. But it's just no, don't allow it. Just look back and just do it again. Tell yourself
That's
again.
Right.
Just keep moving forward.
It all comes back to that that intentionality that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
We're all prone, like our brains are wired to think negatively of ourselves and of others. Like it's just wired that way. And so it really is a muscle that we have to build to intentionally choose what thoughts we allow to stick around.
Right. Exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much, Amber, for coming on here and sharing this story. And well, definitely, I will put in the show notes the book where people can find it, and like you said, like the mom and pa shops or whatever. That would I totally agree. I love that. Anytime we can support the little small businesses or what have you, and also about the Powers Digital Marketing too. That's I know you have some other stuff that you kind of like working on too, but we'll leave that for now, sort of thing. And hey, maybe
we'll dangle that carrot.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, well, I so appreciate.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that you are where you are today. And
thank you.
And it's kind of cool that you got the last name Powers, because you know what, girl, you're powerful.
That was intentional.
Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. Cool. All right.
Yes. Well, thank you, Linda. It's been a joy.
Oh, so nice to meet you, and so nice to speak with you today. And I know all our listeners will love this too. So yeah, will be looking forward to hearing when you're up and running with your new website and everything else as well.
Yeah.
Keep us posted, for sure.
I sure will. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening today. And I'm sending everyone lots of love and light. And that's it for now. So we'll say goodbye for now, and we'll be back. Bye.